Gonna go live. All right, we are live. Michael just wanted to say hey. Welcome back to the Newsfloor, everyone. This is Val, as you can see, our new little name tag space. Valerie Lee, that's me. And I am excited to have you guys here again. This is the Newsfloor, where we go live every single week on Wednesday and we talk about all things happening in dance music, mostly news, also new tracks that are out. And I have some really fun ones, very diverse array this week, and also interviews. And this week I'm really excited because we are going to be welcoming someone very, very far away, but who has some awesome insight. His name is Filippo Palermo, and he is the director of the Untitled Group. And if you don't work in the music industry, and specifically probably in the Australian music industry, you might not know offhand what Untitled Group is. But Untitled Group is a promoter group out in Melbourne. That's where they're based in Australia. And it was really awesome to talk to him because obviously things are quite different over in Australia compared to where I am here in the US and also the rest of the world as well. They've actually been open, quote unquote, open for quite a while now. They've obviously been, adhering to COVID safety restrictions as well, but people have been able to go out to restaurants and bars, and even in New Zealand, and I do believe soon in Australia, they've been able to have actual real life festivals and shows in venues and clubs. So I decided to have him on because I wanted to hear about how the journey has been for him and his company. And also, give us some little hope, because now we're kind of seeing down the line that things are looking like they're coming back really soon. And, things are going to be pretty crazy, I think, as they start to reopen. We've already started to see the announcement of a lot of festivals and a lot of shows. But, there's still a lot of conversation about, are we going to be required to get vaccinated in order to go out to shows, and so on and so forth. So we're going to hear from him and hear a little bit about how it's been going in Australia. But let's dive into the good news, because kind of speaking of coming back in the fall, things in California are actually looking up, and I will pull up the news because California will allow indoor concerts to resume beginning on April 15th. This is the best headline ever. If you guys don't know, I am personally based in California, so I'm really excited about this news that just came out. So basically what happened here is that the state of California's Department of Public Health has said that beginning in April 15th, indoor concerts, performances, and other large gatherings, both public and private, can resume with a number of limitations. So it's not going to be a free-for-all like normal, like back to regular life, but it definitely is looking like things are going to be opening up, and we can hope to hopefully see some concerts again indoors, not just only those outdoor ones, although, summer outdoor concerts also sound great as well. Attendees will have to be tested and provide full proof of their vaccines before attending such gatherings. So again, those COVID restrictions will still apply. And this is all happening because the news reports as of late are showing that, vaccinations are going up, cases are going down. So things are looking really positive for us here in California. So I don't know if anyone out in the chat is based in California. Mike, obviously, up in the chat says California has the lowest COVID positivity rate now as well, which is really exciting and also true. So I think things are looking up for us over here. And I know that, things in New York also are going really well. They're vaccinating a whole bunch of people really quickly. I have a bunch of friends out there who are quickly getting their vaccines as well. So hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more events. Oh, God, guys, this next news is a bit of a tough one. Probably should have put a bit of a trigger warning up on there before I switched over to the news, but we're going to talk about it now. So as you can probably tell by the headline, this one is not great. And this is something that's been going on for a little while now. So if you guys have followed the news, I can't remember exactly when this started, but it was several months ago, where news about Bass Nectar and some really, really bad, sexual misconduct, him talking to underage girls, the news kind of came out, and it was obviously kind of shook the whole dance music community and obviously a lot of his fans as well. Bass Nectar has a had a really strong base of fans who are really passionate about his music. So this news coming out was pretty alarming, and now there's been a follow-up lawsuit that has been filed against him. So two women have actually filed this lawsuit and are accusing Bass Nectar, whose real name is Lauren Ashton, of sexually abusing minors, sex trafficking, and manufacturing and possessing child pornography. So very serious accusations here. And the suit was filed on April 5th on behalf of two women named Rachel and Alexis, who claimed to have been sexually abused by Ashton as minors. And the interesting part about this lawsuit is that it's not only targeting Bass Nectar himself, but actually the management company that was behind him, the touring agency, the record label as well, which quote unquote engaged in sex trafficking. And I think that this term sex trafficking is being used to reference people being moved over state lines. Obviously very serious accusations. So this filing follows when Bass Nectar said back in July, when I think these accusations first started coming out, that he would be taking a step back from his career. It went big first on social media. So, there was a lot of talk on Twitter, and even an Instagram that was made to kind of collect the accusations that were coming out against him. The Instagram was called @Evidence Against Bass Nectar. And, with these kind of cases, it's always really difficult when things come out on social media before they actually go into the legal, court filing systems, because accusations are accusations. And obviously, we want to do our best and take them seriously, especially when they are serious allegations like this as well. But it's hard to actually take much real action besides, the artist being kind of socially banned or socially acceptable from playing shows and similar things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how this lawsuit plays out. Obviously, it was just filed this week, so I think it's going to be a long process. So we're going to be keeping an eye on this, but very serious stuff. And I'm pretty sure that Bass Nectar will not be returning back to the dance music scene or performing anytime soon, which probably is for the best. So let's move on to some better news. Better news on this side of things. If you guys have been on the internet at all over the past few months, I feel like you've probably heard of the NFT craze. If you haven't, I can't really give you a deep 101 dive, but I can give you the basics. So basically, NFT stands for non-fungible token. And this is sort of this blockchain technology that helps prove that you own a piece of digital content, and is now being adopted very quickly by digital artists, and also now by musicians and artists as well. DJs and producers have always been some of the first to jump on these kind of new trends, especially when technology is involved. So it's no surprise that DJs were kind of at the forefront of, as far as music artists getting involved with digital artists in the NFT world. This kind of all started, at least from my sphere of knowledge, with an artist named Blau, who he sold an album of his named Ultraviolet back in February, and it sold for a whopping $11.6 million, believe it or not. And this is, of course, all in cryptocurrency. This is not cash exchanged or anything like that. But the interesting part about Blau, when he sold it, apparently he's been in the community, in the cryptocurrency community, for many, many years. So he kind of had an organic following of people who were interested in his work and what he was about to do in the NFT space. But the piece of art and the album attached to the piece of art that he sold was actually not a brand new album. It was an older album of his. So it's really interesting how the NFT space is kind of allowing artists to find a new stream of revenue, even if it's not necessarily brand new music in the way that the traditional music industry has, promoted new records and new songs and the like. So obviously a lot of artists have gotten really interested in this. I think more and more so over the past, decade, dance music artists have always kind of included this visual element into their works, whether it's the album artwork or when they're playing a live show. There's kind of these visual elements that help tell the story of their music. So this is something that's not new to artists, so it makes sense. And Big Fish Calvin Harris was the most recent one to also jump on the train. He said that NFTs, in his opinion, can completely revolutionize the music industry. And this kind of all came out because he actually collaborated with a longtime collaborator and friend of his named Emil Nava. I believe they've worked on tons of music videos together. I think that they first met when they were working on Calvin Harris's I Need Your Love music video. And supposedly they've been inseparable since. They've worked on over 20 music videos together since. And they created this piece of NFT art called Technofish, which I'm going to pull up here. This is what it looks like. So they had a couple different drops. Well, I guess it's one drop, but a couple of different pieces of art. So these are the 3 pieces of art. They're called Technofish. And as you can see, they're all sold out now. One of them obviously sold for quite a bit of money. At the time that that Billboard article was published, it hadn't even sold yet. But you can tell they're pretty beautiful pieces of art. Look at that. That's really cool, honestly. And there's been a lot of interesting conversation. I'm curious to know if anyone's in chat who wants to give their opinion about NFTs. There's been a lot of controversial opinions of kind of naysayers of those early adopters being like, I don't know, like it seems kind of wild to be paying hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars for a piece of digital art where you don't actually own it. You can't hang it up on your wall or anything like that. But at the same time, so much of what we own nowadays is digital. So is it really that different? Because none of us really even own music anymore. Most of us are either Spotify or Apple Music subscribers. And, we have the trade-off of not owning things anymore to be able to access what we want to whenever we want to. So these are the pieces of NFT art from Calvin Harris and his collaborator, Emil Nava. You can't download the file. That's a good question. I think that you cannot download the file. You own it. Again, self-proclaimed non-NFT expert here, so I'm definitely not the best source. But basically, what's interesting I do know about the blockchain technology related to NFTs is that it tracks or it connects the artists and the people that quote unquote mint these art pieces forever. So they're attached to this piece of art no matter how many times it resells in the future. So they will always make a percentage of commission in a way of profit off of those future sales. So there's kind of a really big resale market for NFTs at the moment, which is kind of contributing to those really big numbers that we're seeing. For example, when Blau sold his ultraviolet one for $11 million in February, which is still really wild to me. But Calvin Harris, he gave the quote where he said, this is a whole new tool for a new level of creativity that isn't policed by radio or streaming or labels or anything else similar to the, more traditional music industry. It's a whole new avenue and you can put out whatever you want. And he says that's kind of how music should be, but it really isn't at the moment. So I do think that is definitely the big win, I think, for a lot of artists and music folks who are getting into the NFT space is that it is currently not policed. There aren't any kind of big major labels that have their hands in it. I do know that a couple, big brands have started to get curious about it and started to get into it, but it's still very much a wild, wild west situation. So it's kind of like if you can create a following, and especially if you are already involved in the crypto space and, well known as a musician yourself or have some sort of following elsewhere, people are kind of seeing this as a moment to, be a part of history where you can buy something and, own a piece of art that no one ever will have and also be able to kind of say that you were there first. So again, that's my take on it. Curious to know what people think. Maybe you guys own some NFTs. Maybe you've dove into the space before. It's all very new anyways, but I think it's one of those things that definitely is not going anywhere. So I think we just kind of have to wait and see what happens afterwards. Let's get into some new music today. I'm going to start with a really interesting choice. I'm curious to know what everyone thinks about this track because it is not the same as normal stuff that we usually play here. So Jean-Michel Jarre, obviously legendary name. He is working on something really interesting. So he has composed and recorded a 52-minute musical score for a film called Amazonia. So I'm gonna play this, and as I play this, before I start talking about it, you're going to hear some interesting audio in this one because there are two different versions that this will be released with. There is a standard version and there's a binaural version. Not sure which way is the correct pronunciation for that. But as you can hear, the standard one is very typical of what you can hear. And now the binaural one, I don't know if you guys are wearing headphones. I obviously have my headphones on so I can hear it. This binaural version provides the listener with a more kind of immersive sound experience, and it was specifically sound engineered to be heard on headphones. So stereo sound is kind of that traditional left and right sound that you're used to hearing when you listen to music. But binaural audio, when listened to on regular headphones, creates a sort of 3D surround sound experience, which is really crazy. When I was listening to this earlier, I was really confused about what was happening because obviously you can tell the difference in the sound as it switches back and forth. There we go. We have another switch right now. But giving some more context about this project will probably explain why there's this difference in the two sound experiences. So this is a musical score for a film called Amazonia, which is a new project by an award-winning photographer and filmmaker named Sebastião Salago. And this was made for the Philharmonic in Paris. So this is actually an immersive exhibition that focuses on the Brazilian Amazon. So it's featuring a bunch of photographs from the photographer himself. He's been traveling the region for over 6 years, capturing the forest, the rivers, the mountains. And as you can tell, the musical score is very much, kind of ingrained in that jungle nature sound. It's so interesting. I hope you guys can hear it. Hopefully you guys are wearing headphones and can hear the difference in it. It is really, really odd. I've never actually heard something created with this, binaural version. All right. It's a little disorienting also listening to it back and forth. But this project comes out on Friday. So definitely going to keep an eye out for this one and check out the movie when it comes out. I'm going to move on to our next song, which I'm really excited about because this is a brand new song from Kind Music. I'm going to turn it up because I love Kind Music. Their last album came out in 2017 and it was called You Are Safe. It has been a long time since we last heard from them. It's been several years and I'm so excited that they're finally on their way back. This is their first new single from what they have announced is their forthcoming brand new Kind Music album. Hi Lily, thanks for joining. I see you in the chat. So the new Kind Music album, there are not that many details out yet. All we know is that, the trio are back. Kind Music is a German collective made up of Anne Me, Rampa, Adam Port, and they're fantastic. I saw them, it must have been like 4 or 5 years ago now, back in LA. And they were one of my favorite trios to catch. So this new song is called Discoteca. It features an artist named Sophie who is based in California. And I liked the description that they gave for this song. They mentioned that, Discoteca is meant to shine a light on things to come. The first being the longed comeback of the discoteca. Of course, we've been talking about this for weeks now, that we see the light at the end of the tunnel. We are all going to be out dancing, I think, hopefully by fall, fingers crossed. And number 2 is the new album that is coming from Anne Me, Rampa, and Adam Port. So again, not that many details have been given. They haven't shared exactly when the album is coming out or when we can expect it or what it's even called. But we know it's coming. So let's hold on to that at least for now. I'm going to give this one a listen because it's just getting started before we move on to the next one. So I always forget how long these tracks are. 7-minute track. But, oh, I can't wait. I'm so glad that they're back. Kind Music are truly one of the best. Just imagine yourself on a beach, a Tulum evening dance party. That's the vibe, right? All right. Kind Music is back, and that is good news. Let's move on to our next one because we have one last track that is really different. And I'm wondering what you guys will think of it, but it's going to be, let's see, let's pull up. It is actually not, this song actually came out in October. So it's not a brand new song, but I'm sharing it with you now because the album that this song is out on actually just came out. So this is obviously a bit different than bit different speed than what we were just listening to. This is from a trio named Wave Dash, and they are a Texas-based production trio, and their brand new debut album just came out. It is called World Famous Tour, which I love. So this album just came out on April 2nd via Insomniac Records. These guys are so fun, and they're very new, but they are definitely on their way up. I think people are really excited about them. I know Porter Robinson is a really big fan. As you can tell, they've got this like really unique kind of glitchy new wave sound. I don't even know what the right genre terms are anymore nowadays, but it's a group of 3 guys. They're all friends, and they supposedly all kind of bonded over their love of the 21st century dance music movement. Porter Robinson being one of their inspirations. The M Machine, which I'm so glad they shouted out because that was one of my favorites way back in the day. One of the early Ausla acts that became really big at the time. So they actually debuted back in 2016. So again, they're not that old. They haven't been around for too long. So they're kind of like on their big up, and they debuted on Ausla, Skrillex's label, back in 2016 with the single named Bang. And this is the lead single off of their new album, which I believe came out in October. And the new album is really fun. It's really interesting, and I think it's one of those albums that is really unique for the dance music space. So hopefully now that, again, we're kind of seeing the return of live events, their album's name is World Famous Tour, so hopefully they'll be able to go on a world famous tour. I like this video too. Very of the moment. Okay. Michael says I should play that Medusa clip, which is really funny because we actually worked on a really fun project together. And you know what? I will pull it up. I will pull up the Medusa clip, Michael. Wave Dash was part of this really crazy live set that was premiered with Slander's big event on Twitch a couple months ago. It was like several months ago now. But it was really cool. I'm going to show you guys what it looked like. This is the Wave Dash portion of that set. As you can tell, there is a huge, giant snake set behind them. So this was actually filmed at the site of where Burning Man typically is. Obviously, last year, Burning Man didn't happen. But for those who don't know, Burning Man is known for having these huge art pieces that kind of get custom designed and custom built out there because it's this huge desert landscape with it's very flat, so it's easy to build these kind of giant structures. So this is one that was called the Medusa for our lovely Medusa who has a bunch of snakes as hair. Look at that. I just realized that the song that I just played is also playing right now. So look at that. That's some good promo right there. This was really fun. Michael and I were both there enjoying it. So yeah, I know. I played the exact song. I'm a promo master. All right. So 3 very different tracks today. We had Jean-Michel Jarre's I don't even know if I can call it a track, honestly, because obviously it is part of a musical score for this movie called Amazonia, but very interesting. And obviously Jean-Michel Jarre is a legend. So have to shout out that he's working on a really innovative and interesting project. But the 2 tracks were Discoteca from Kind Music, which I'm really excited about. Definitely a bit more low tempo, but I'm really excited for their coming album, and our friends Wave Dash, who just released their brand new album called World Famous Tour. So you tell me, which one was your favorite? Ooh, I'm going to cut us off right at the drop so we don't get too hooked into that one. But let me know which one was your guys' favorite. I like not being like obvious with what we're going to pick as far as tracks. I don't know about you guys. Obviously, what we cover here is dance music, but I like to go all around the board, whether it's house music, a little more EDM leaning. I think there's a lot of good stuff to go over. So with that being said, let's move on to the interview portion of the show. I'm really excited. I mentioned in the intro, but if you just joined us somewhat recently, we're going to be speaking to Filippo Palermo, who is the director of Untitled Group. Untitled Group is a group of promoters, a promotion company based in Melbourne in Australia. And I wanted to bring him on to speak with us because obviously Australia has had a lot of success over the past 6 months or so, where we have been stuck inside in quarantine. Australia, obviously being an island and having a government that took it in a different direction. They've been able to reopen at a much quicker pace than we have. Restaurants, bars, and even some nightclubs now are already open. And the Untitled Group are the promoters behind a couple of really big festivals out there. I'll try and play a clip later afterwards, but Beyond the Valley is one of the really big ones. And Filippo will talk about some of the other ones as well. But I thought it'd be interesting to hear about how his past few months have been going, to give us a little hope and maybe even some guidance as far as how the US is going to open up in the next few weeks, months. But without further ado, let's hear from Filippo. Hey, Phil. Is it okay if I call you Phil? I didn't even ask. I just went straight for the Phil. How are you?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm going well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. I know you were just telling me right before I hit record, but I feel like I should tell the world who will be watching this that it is your birthday. Very special day. So happy
Yes.
birthday from all of us here at the
Thank you.
Newsfloor over to you. I'm really excited to have you, not only because it's your birthday, obviously, but I am really curious to have you tell us a little bit, not only about who you are and what you do over at the Untitled Group, but also point out that you guys are based in Melbourne in Australia, and things over there are obviously a lot different than they are over here in the US and other places all around the world right now, as we're kind of like almost at the end of the tunnel where we see the light, but we're not quite there. And I feel like you guys are the ones partying at the end of the light of the tunnel already.
That is correct, yeah.
Yeah, so give me a quick intro about who you are and what Untitled is.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Phil Palermo. I'm one of the co-founders and directors of Untitled Group. We're an Australian-based company. We have multiple facets of our business, which range from touring. We own a booking agency, an artist management company, an artist, a record label, and in addition to this, the first and foremost, we own a music festival property arm of the company, which is kind of how we started and got into this. Untitled Group was kind of built in nightclubs, effectively, about 9 years ago. We started running some pretty big parties in some nightclubs and some old theaters, between 2,000 to 3,000 people, and then about 7 years ago, the company took a change in its kind of its priorities to focus on music festivals, beginning with Beyond the Valley, which has previously hosted the likes of Chance the Rapper, Stormzy, Tyler the Creator, Rufus the Soul, Little Dragon, Jamie XX,
amazing
Peggy
lineups.
Goo, Honey Dijon, yeah, that kind of vibe. So yeah, that's probably our biggest festival. Probably we also own music festivals in Australia, Pitch Music and Arts, which is a bit more underground electronic, Maceo Plex, Nina Kravitz, Richie Horton, etc. As well as we own a lot of national touring festivals. So Grapevine Gathering, which is a winery festival that happens, 3 to 4 shows across the country each year, between Victoria, New South Wales, Western Australia, and then For the Love, which is another touring festival. We also, as part of our brand ethos, we do a lot of charity work. We own a festival with Paralympian Dylan Alcott, in partnership with his foundation, the Dylan Alcott Foundation, which focuses on creating a completely inclusive festival for people of all abilities. And we've successfully raised $500,000 over the last few years to go towards people who, young Australians, who require resources and education and stuff, who for whatever their disability is that they need help with.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I mean, amazing not only in the fact of the quantity of events that you guys are working across, but also the kind of diversity of. I love the Ability Festival that you were just describing. That's such a kind of an underrepresented population within the music live events community, and I'm sure that's such an awesome event for you guys to put forward. So. Now that we've established that you guys, do it all, know it all as far as the events and music stuff goes, things over there in Australia are obviously quite different, I would say, as currently as we stand right now. I was just telling you a little bit ago that, I feel like here in the US, we are almost at the end of the tunnel where we can see the light and freedom is right there, but we're not quite there yet. We're getting close. The events are starting to get announced, but we're we've been jealously, kind of seeing all the live events and people going and living their lives out in Australia and New Zealand over the past few months. So I imagine that, it feels probably pretty good over there now, but I'm sure that 2020 was still quite a crazy year for you guys as well. So walk me through what the year was like for you and kind of what the process was like coming out of 2020 as well.
Yeah, sure. 2020 was tumultuous, to say the least. We just scraped in there with what is probably our second biggest festival property, Pitch Music and Arts, which had about 40 internationals performing at the event across 4 days out in the the Australian bush. It's probably one of my favorite personally one of my favorite festivals that we own, just in terms of the event itself and the stage designs and the artists that perform. It's a growing niche market here, which is starting to become more and more commercialized. But yeah, we basically, everyone kind of went into Pitch with very little knowledge of what COVID was. And then a week later, it was like bang. So we just scraped through before lockdowns hit. The first thing to happen was 500 person limited mass gatherings. That was then changed to 100, and then we went into full lockdown over the course of a month. And then we stayed in that lockdown, I think, for it was like 6 months in total. But we tried to diversify the company, did some work within kind of, a lot of research into beginning our own venture capitalist fund and starting to diversify our company into stuff which was more e-commerce based and stuff. But we at the same time we were really building our comeback at the same time, still booking lineups for the likes of Beyond the Valley and Grapevine stuff, and looking at venues that could hold smaller capacity events. So yeah, it was a rough year. It was a roller coaster, just like everywhere else in the world. But Australia, I think when New Zealand got out of lockdown, there was like a glimmer of hope here. But there was a lot of everyone was very pessimistic about it. Like everyone was like, "There's no way." I mean, it's like people are like, "Oh, it's going to be 2021, no, 2022, 2023." But one thing that I kind of always stuck by is, well, we just don't have the information yet to be able to make that determination, and
Right.
We didn't. And yeah, towards the end of last year, Melbourne, the city which we live in, even though we do events and tours across the whole country, ended up coming down to 0 cases, which was phenomenal.
Great news.
Yeah, and because all the other states in Australia were at or near zero, the whole country just kind of opened up. So we started doing socially distanced events with the Victorian Arts Centre at the Sydney Mime Music Bowl. The main first one back was an event that we own called Sun Cycle, which traditionally happens on New Year's Day, but we did it. We ran it in like pods, so people purchased 2, 4, 6-person pods, and that's their dance floor effectively. And that was great. It was 3,000 tickets. Everyone watching one stage, nice and simple, instead of having a multi-stage, multi-day event. And it was it almost felt nostalgic because we had forgotten what it was like to be at a live music concert like that. So yeah, that was earlier this year. But there's been a lot of focus and a lot of in terms of like where the economy has really boomed of late. Hospitality here in Australia has seen a massive boom. Restaurants, bars, cafes, and nightclubs. We recently reopened an old nightclub of ours, XC54, which has previously hosted the likes of Solomon, Sven Vath, to name a few. And so it's a pretty, it's a techno nightclub called XC54, and we reopened that. Obviously, just because of the capacity restrictions that we were facing, but being able to do a larger scale 5, 10, 15, 20,000 person events, even 30,000 person events that we've previously done, we couldn't hold them anymore. So we started to do, volume is always something that you're trying to chase when you're building a show or a tour budget to be able to kind of hit your bottom line. So we kind of changed our model to just do more shows with small capacity. So we've been doing about once a fortnight shows at an old converted warehouse in Port Melbourne, which
Sounds
is kind
fun.
of which is good. That's 1,500 people in total. It's just straight up all Australian talent. And then we've been doing the club every weekend, as well as a bunch of national tours with a lot of Australian artists that we've previously worked with, a lot of live bands. And, some of those shows are ranging between, everything from like 300 people through to 2,000 to 3,000. So we're in a really, really good place at the moment. And the Victorian public health framework got changed recently to reflect that any event under 5,000 people doesn't require a COVID safe plan, which is
truly
crazy.
back to normal, right? Quote unquote normal.
Truly back to normal. Yeah. So we're organizing, because we're about to go into our winter. We're about to organize a few winter festivals around the 5,000 person mark, just under a big circus tent out in a couple of greenfield parks. So we're in I'm extremely grateful for this situation that Australia is now in. We obviously weren't in that. We were far from this last year. And I really hope for the rest of the world that, aside from New Zealand, because they're in the same boat, that they get to enjoy what we've been enjoying the last few months as well, shortly.
Yeah, well, I can just say it brings me a lot of hope to even just hear you talking about the timeline, because I mean, even though ours has been longer, I do feel like similarly a lot of the promoters in the US have been really creative about, not only getting by for 2020 and figuring out, just how to stay afloat, but then also, trying these drive-in shows and these little pods, like you mentioned. So I know it's been tough for all promoters everywhere, but I do feel like, those that really care about what they do and the scene and the music, they've really tried to do their best. And now, like I keep saying, there's hope on the horizon. I did want to ask you about one thing. You mentioned that, obviously with travel restrictions still being the case currently, a lot of your events that you've been having and have coming up are featuring Australian talent, kind of because I'm sure that's who's available because everyone's there. But I also kind of love it because obviously Australia has been a big pioneering force for dance music as a whole. And something I find really interesting is, talking to the big stars that have quote unquote broken out of Australia. They always talk about how Australia can feel really far away just because it is really far away from the rest of the world. But I kind of love this moment that you guys are having where you guys as promoters get to feature all these, local talents. And I would assume that has a great effect on the music scene there. Are you seeing that at all? Or how are you feeling about the Australian talents that are kind of coming out of this moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing it massively. There's a lot of developing Australian talent that are having a big moment here. Artists that would have previously sold 100 tickets doing 700 tickets. The appetite for Australian talent is grown dramatically just because people have had the opportunity to stop, listen, and learn about these artists. Whereas before, the market was very it was a big mix. There was internationals coming in every weekend. There was music festivals happening regularly, which would feature 40 or 50% internationals, the rest Australian artists. Australia's always been very loyal to its headline Australian talent, I think. And for instance, our headliner for Beyond the Valley last year, Rufus Du Sol, who
love them.
Everyone at our company is we're quite close friends with all the band members and the management and stuff, and they were the headliner for Beyond the Valley last year, just given their, they kind of reached critical mass here, are just so popular that, it's kind of this almost like a thought in Australia that, there was precedent which was previously set that you usually put an international at the top of the flyer. But I think when you're talking about artists like Rufus Du Sol, Tame Impala, Flume, and then in the modern era, because those artists have been around for a while now, and they're all just kind of, they paid their dues and their first name on the flyer for festivals. But we're seeing artists like Dom Dolla, who's probably the best example, who is kind of joining the headliner club at the moment, as well as there's some great Australian bands that are on their way to getting there, like Gang of Youths and stuff.
I think of Last Slings, who I've been super excited about over the past year and a half or so, and they were definitely sort of like making their way as an emerging act. But I've seen they've been playing big shows over in Australia since things kind of opened up again, and I'm like, yes, you guys deserve it. On the fast track.
I went to the Last Slings show 4 days ago here in Melbourne, and it was absolutely incredible. I've seen them play many times before because I'm also a huge fan, and we represent them from our booking agency Proxy, and I agree with you there. I think I'd tip them as probably one of the next big artists to in the coming years to join that headliner club.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that is another one of those silver lining things, I guess, we can thank this weird year of COVID for is at least we got to fast track some deserving Australian talents. So tell me what's coming up next for you guys. I saw on the website you guys have a bunch of events already announced all throughout the rest of the year, and some are even sold out. But tell me what you're excited about.
I'm excited about all of them.
I can't pick my favorite.
I can't speak too much on the New Year's Eve festivals that we own, like Wildlands and Beyond the Valley and stuff, and our plans there, because obviously we like to keep that stuff up our sleeve.
Yep.
But obviously, I can talk about what has happened with Beyond the Valley and stuff. But the I'm excited for the future to see our bigger festival properties return, and to grow from these smaller warehouse shows and the clubs back into what we were doing before COVID hit. And I think the Australian market is super excited to see a lot of those names pop back up, whether it be, Strawberry Fields Festival. I know announced recently, and they have a huge cult following here in Australia, specifically in Victoria, as well as festivals like Sugar Mountain. I look forward to seeing their return. And then there's of course your laneways and listen outs and stuff that I think Australian customers are really excited to see come back. But if I had to say what I was most excited about without talking too much, just because of the timing of it, where it sits, and I guess just assuming what our lockdown situation or our capacity situation will be by then, I'm probably most looking forward to Pitch Music and Arts 2022, awesome, which is like a year away, but still.
It's okay. If we've learned anything from this past year, it's that time flies, right? So it'll be a year before we know it. I'm gonna drop the link to your guys' website into the chat as well, so people can check out. Hopefully we have some maybe Australian viewers who are excited and can actually attend some of your events in real life, and the rest of us will just keep our fingers crossed until everything clears up and we can go back to Australia.
Well, just to finish on the Australian talent front, we actually just got our first international into the country, obviously through a 2-week hotel quarantine. But Ben UFO is currently touring with us at the moment, and we've got a few more internationals coming up. So it's something which is going to happen more and more in Australia in the coming months. So any international artists that are thinking of getting over here, the visa is an extremely long, lengthy, and expensive process to get over. But those that are committed, Ben, for instance, is basically like treating this as a bit of a holiday. He's going to be here for like 2 months, and we're just spreading out shows across like Perth, Gold Coast, Melbourne, etc.
Smart. That's smart. And again, I just love to hear that, after so many years of Australia feeling like the far away, almost like neglected territory across the world, now you guys are at the forefront, and I can't think of a place that deserves it more. Thank you, Phil, for stopping by. And congrats and good luck with everything Untitled. We're going to be keeping an eye out for all the exciting events to come.
Thank you very much.
Take care. I'm back. So fun to hear from Phil. Allie, I see your question in the chat. I think the international artists are few and far between currently, but it sounds like, Phil was explaining that Ben UFO is scheduling kind of a 2-month vacation, but also mini tour of Australia while he's there. It's definitely not easy, it sounds like, to make it over there with visa clearances, and I'm sure the process itself is probably not only expensive but long, but there's hope. I definitely walked away from that conversation with him feeling excited about the future, not only for Australia, because they really have had so many amazing talents that have come out of Australia. And I feel like consistently the messaging is that they feel the need to leave Australia to make it elsewhere. But now it kind of is, the tables have turned. And now Australian artists, I know a lot of them have gone back, who are natives of Australia and are already looking to play shows and festivals. And I can't think of anything more exciting at this moment than going back to a real festival and hanging out with real people. So to end out the stream, I'm going to play a clip from Beyond the Valley, which is one of Untitled events. And we talked about Rufus, obviously Australian trio, amazing band. This was from their show, I believe, in 2019. So that was the last Beyond the Valley. And I think Rufus Du Sol actually just announced that they're playing another show, their first show, actually, I should say, in 2021, later this year in November. So Doesn't this song just give you hope too? There's a chance we're coming back.
Feels like I'm waiting.
So fingers crossed we
Like
can
I'm
also experience
watching.
something like this really soon together. Thank you again for tuning in to
Watching
another
you
episode
fall
of The Newsfloor. Yes, Mike, amazing what happens when people believe in science. Shout out to science. Shout out to the vaccine. Shout out to Rufus Du Sol. Shout out to Entitled Group. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of The Newsfloor. We're here every single Wednesday talking to all sorts of amazing folks in the dance music space, sometimes artists, sometimes industry leaders. That's right, Mike. Drop your Val emotes in the chat if you're here. My name is Valerie. We're here every single week. We talk about news, new releases. Connie, I can't wait to rave with you. You already know that. I'm gonna shout you out anyways. All right, I'm gonna leave you guys with this, and I will see you guys here next week.
Feels like I'm dreaming, like I'm walking by your side. Keeps on repeating. So all the talking, wasting all your time. I give the I've got. Thank you, Beyond the Valley. Sadly, this is where we leave you, lovely people. Happy New Year.